Yeah, we running game on the old school Detroit Pistons bad boy teams. We winning titles and interrupting the glamour party. Like, comment, share, download, no code pink check. It's the Golden Show and the Golden Debate Show. GoldendebateShow.com. All up in your grill from FEMA Region 1.
Two-tone tortellini called calzone. Straight banging y'all with it.
Yes, sir. Mother Day weekend. We still gonna try getting our
AM.
The Golden Happy Mother's Day to all them. You know what I'm following, but obviously the mothers are the ones that deal with our bratty ass most of the time. Let's get it in and let's kick it up a notch. Get it in with my man 2 Minute Girls from YouTube. Wow.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of News in 2 Minutes, bringing you the news that you need to know every day. Let's begin. Officials leading the cleanup and recovery effort at the waste isolation pilot plant in New Mexico have called for the immediate closure of all but one nuclear waste burial panel at the site. Reports show that authorities continued to deny specific aspects of information disclosure regarding the accident, as officials refused to provide concerned citizens and reporters with the names of the facilities that the radiologically matching material may have arrived from. In yet another crude oil trail derailment, emergency management officials are working to determine the cause of and negative effect to the environment after a number of rail cars carrying crude oil derailed in Colorado while en route to New York. Researchers and the community alike are beginning to document and analyze the notable increase in railway-related disasters in recent months, with many noting the possibility of sabotage following governmental calls for the Department of Homeland Security to provide a more secure environment and handling procedure for infrastructural railways throughout the U.S. Confirming years of amateur and professional research that has been conducted within the community, environmental scientists have now determined a link between a number of the world's most widely used pesticides and global colony collapse disorder. In findings released this week, research performed at Harvard University and led by Chen-Sheng Liu, Associate Professor of Environmental Exposure Biology at the Harvard School of Public Health, shows that even low levels of neonicotinoids currently approved as safe for agriculture and bees has a catastrophic effect on the creatures, and if not stopped immediately, may cause irreparable harm to the world's food supply chain. As case numbers continue to erupt throughout the Middle East, the World Health Organization has announced an emergency meeting with some of the world's top infectious disease experts this coming Tuesday, where leading health authorities will discuss the increase in cross-border MERS infections and ways to handle the global spread of a virus that continues to fatally infect 1 out of every 3 people that contract the disease. And to wrap things up, former Treasury Secretary and Federal Reserve President Timothy Geithner has disclosed the open discussions that the White House has presented concerning the nationalization of American banks, a move that some say continues to happen behind closed doors. North Korea has reportedly started using drones to gather South Korean intelligence, and a 5.8 in Tonga, followed by a 5.6 in Fiji, completes today's Quake Watch. And that's it for this episode of News in 2 Minutes. Check back tomorrow for more news that the aware need the most. This week's News in 2 Minutes is brought to you by SHTFplan.com. Where even the officials go for news.
Put me under this little documentary.
It's
kind of a long clip,
but it's pretty good. Not alone?
It's what if we're not alone in this UFO?
What if the hundreds of thousands of people claim to have seen unidentified flying objects, in fact had been witnessing extraterrestrial spacecraft?
I think so. Where's that space, Piff?
What if the thousands of people all over the world who tell about their encounters with alien beings through friendly contact or even forced abductions were actually telling the truth?
That game?
What if our governments had known about an ET presence for more than half a century? If they were in possession of alien technology that had the potential of changing how our world is run? And they chose to keep the public in the dark through a secret campaign of suppressed information. What if that campaign acted as a chain around the ankles of humanity, keeping us from rising to a whole new level of consciousness and understanding of ourselves, our planet, and the universe around us? And what if that campaign ended tomorrow?
It's one of these currents of history that won't be denied. The truth is going to come out, and when it does, it's going to be explosive.
So Once we get that out, we will go back and completely reassemble the 20th century, rewrite it in a way, and may have to go back and rewrite a significant portion of the entire last 12,000 years.
This is the greatest story in human history. And the reason it is the greatest story in human history, it is the greatest story of human history.
The worldview portrayed in this statement by renowned scientist Lord Kelvin in 1900 was shattered only 5 years later when Albert Einstein published his groundbreaking paper on special relativity. The new theories challenged the current framework of understanding and forced the scientific community to open up to a broader view on the nature of reality. This event of fundamental change, this paradigm shift, came as a huge surprise to scholars at that time. But today we have no problem following the string of breakthroughs leading up to Einstein's paper and the doorway into the atomic age. Lord Kelvin's statement bears with it the voice of paradigms past. We knew that the Earth was flat. We knew that we were in the center of the universe. And we knew that a man-made heavier-than-air piece of machinery could not take flight. Through all stages of human history, intellectual authorities have pronounced their supremacy by ridiculing or suppressing elements of reality that simply didn't fit within the framework of accepted knowledge. The so-called father of modern science, the Italian astronomer Galileo, was even convicted by the Catholic Church and placed under house arrest for life after publishing a book where he supported the idea that the Earth was not the center of the universe. His work was then banned and forbidden for more than 200 years. But are we really any different today? Have we really changed our acceptance towards the things that won't fit the frame? Maybe there are concepts of our reality we have yet to understand. And if we open our eyes, maybe we will see that something significant has been overlooked.
For 21 years, and for much of the early 90s, I was responsible for running their UFO project. The Ministry of Defence has been investigating UFO sightings since the 1950s and has about 12,000 reports in its case files.
When
I was doing the job in the 90s, I received about 200 or 300 reports each year.
Elroy, where are you?
In May 2008, the British government opened its first batch of UFO
just about
files
every
for
government's
public
pretty much
inspection.
saying that there probably
The
is,
release,
except for
made
ours.
available on the internet, created an immense media and
But I don't know,
public
man.
interest, with over 2
I do
million
believe that there
downloads
probably
the
is
first weeks.
extraterrestrials, but
Other
there probably is
nations had
governments,
just
they
recently
said that
opened
the
their
Nazis had
files,
spaceships
and
and
more
shit
were
too,
to follow.
Yep,
France,
reverse engineered
Belgium,
them so they have their own
Ireland,
technology.
Denmark, Turkey, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico. The most amazing stories
Golden
were
Universe, pretty
revealed.
much. So like commentary and
Craft,
download.
Yes.
UFO
One of the top
fleets,
podcasts in the whole
the
world.
great
and
Golden
even
Journey.
ET entities being seen, often with multiple eyewitnesses involved. Even if many of the reports could be explained as aircraft, weather balloons, satellites, or planets, or special weather phenomena, still a large portion remained unexplained.
It is clear to me, given that these things are seen by police officers, pilots, military personnel, given that they are sometimes tracked on radar, it is clear to me that whatever the UFO phenomenon involves, there are serious defence, national security and air safety issues at stake.
The question if we are alone in the universe is as old as man himself. But now this question seems to be more pressing than ever. Today, science has discovered that many of our neighboring stars have similar planet systems. Over 500 planets have been registered so far. Some scientists even claim that our galaxy alone may have billions of planets with Earth-like conditions. So the idea of us humans being the only intelligent life in the universe seems to be losing its grip. Over the years, polls have shown that a rising number of people believe in intelligent life elsewhere. In many countries, far more than 50% of the population. This question of extraterrestrial life was also among the reasons why the SETI project was established back in the 1980s. SETI stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. This project, still ongoing, is using large radio telescopes at several locations on the globe to scan the cosmos in search for electromagnetic transmissions that could indicate intelligent life. This is the radio telescope in Bologna in Italy, one of the largest of its kind in Europe. This enormously complex system of antennas is able to detect even the weakest signals from the universe. And by interpreting these signals, the scientists are able to learn a lot about the age and the origin of the stars, the galaxies, and the universe. And perhaps also detect signals from intelligent life.
What we are looking for actually is not really a particular kind of signal. We are just searching for something different from the normal cosmic noise, so to say. So we are not searching for a particular transmission signals. But for example, it would be enough to detect some signals coming from their communications, televisions, if they do have televisions, or cellular telephones or things like that. Well, we have recorded a huge amount of data so far, but unfortunately we could not get any signal yet.
But has the research been done for the right type of signal?
Draft this show. Tell
Well,
somebody
we are
about it
looking
so
for
we shine
answers
the light
inside the framework of our own
So here's the
paradigm.
doctor as we close this clip and
Civilizations
bring in the
of the
next
several
one. He's
million years ahead of us in technological sophistication may not transmit our type of radio signals at all.
Kind of just passing through, but I think
Come and turn down and pass the knowledge around. GoldendebateShow.
I was always pro-fluoride until a couple of months ago when I was talking to a colleague and realised I didn't really know much about it. And since I was being held up as a dentist as supporting water fluoridation, I thought I'd better have a look at the evidence, because after all we're supposed to be evidence-based. I trusted the Dental Association and the Ministry of Health and the dental school to be giving us the right direction, because water fluoridation doesn't really have any relevance to my day-to-day practice, so it's not something that I really need to be up to date with. But I saw the need to do so. By the way, I like the water here, it's really good. Much better than Wellington. In the old days, like before the information age, it was very hard for a dentist working on private practice to actually look at the research. We had to travel down to the dental school at Dunedin, which is the only place that had a database of journals. Now we can do our research online on PubMed, EBSCO, Medline. There's a lot of sites out there that you can do your research with, which makes things a lot easier. And I expect that it won't take long for all the dentists in New Zealand to actually look at the research and come out against fluoridation. What I found shook my faith in democracy. I graduated in 1981 in Otago. I also have a degree in psychology. I've been working in Wellington for 30 years in public practice. I was pro-fluoride until 2 months ago, and I'm not just passing through. I have to put up this disclaimer because there are people that don't like dentists to talk about it, which is probably why there aren't too many around at this stage. Any views I may express in this presentation are my own views formed from my own personal investigation into available studies, data and publications, and they do not represent the expressed views of the NZDA, DCNZ, Dental Council, Ministry of Health, Dental Health Boards, American Dental Associations, CDC and other political organisations, and the 5% of the world which forces water fluoridation on citizens. I find that a bit peculiar. On the bright side, however, my views are supported by bodies, scientists and health professionals in the rest of the planet who don't think that dumping toxic waste in the drinking water is a good idea. There are serious health studies being ignored. The National Research Council 2006, Chang et al., the York Report, Declan War, they've all done metadata studies of research and found serious health concerns which are being ignored by our Ministry of Health. Fluoridation advocates talk bad science. This is obvious in the York Review, which studied thousands of scientific publications and studies on fluoride, and they found that none of them was up to a good standard. Most of them were very poor standard, some of them were average standard, but most of them have been tainted by variables such as investigated bias.
You've seen these things.
The No Agenda Show, check them out. No Agenda.
Usually a couple reporters in the field, and they point the microwave dish at them, and they fry
them. There's
them.
no agenda there.
Well, this is a
you
laser
can't have
device.
advertisements and all that shit, and they be talking about crazy shit.
Right.
But it needs to be
It's
done.
a big giant
That's why we need
laser
to get
that
like
has like
commentaries
these
and downloads.
gigawatt, not a gigawatt, but has lots of energy, and it can heat up anything from a distance. And supposedly it can go up and heat up a missile coming in and turn it into a stone.
No, there's videos, I've seen it on YouTube. So from the companies that make this, I forget who did it,
right?
And they show frying a plane in the sky. So the plane is flying. It's a drone plane. It's I think it's an maybe an F-15, and it's flying by remote control. Basically, just a shell of a plane, but it's flying. And then they direct this thing at it, and it just fries.
Yeah, well, that's not what happens. At least not with the ones they have currently. They can heat them up and disable them, and they can do that. And the idea is that they're supposed to be targeting drones, literally drones. That it's like, in other words, we get a bunch of people, which is going to happen. These, who knows who, the Sinaloa cartel, for all we know, buy a bunch of drones, they'll be flying them around, and you can nail them with one of these devices and they cook the thing. And then it just falls out of the sky.
Well, we know that the press is not going to have drones. Did you see that the press, the Collective Press Corps, has been suing the U.S. government?
Try to get drones for that way. That's a great idea, because those little drones that they want, which are not dangerous.
But the FAA is not allowing it.
I know. They don't want this little thing taking photographs of mobs.
No, that would be very bad. Of course,
that'd be bad.
Actually, I wanted to hook into that. Something that happened 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. All of the flight data systems at major airports stopped working. And the information that we have is very, very minor. We have almost nothing. You heard about this, right? They grounded.
No, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, they grounded all planes. Let me see. I have the report here. A computer glitch that caused air traffic chaos in western U.S. states last week, the Federal Aviation Administration has revealed. The meltdown occurred when software incorrectly thought a U-2 spy plane
right. No, I know this story,
was on a collision course with other planes. I'm going to call bullshit on that.
Well, there's something bullcrappy about it, because for one thing, the U-2 is at 60,000 feet.
And he pointed out what is really an incredible double standard when it comes to the issue of gun ownership and the war on drugs. And he said, this is Dion. David, I think it's a bit odd that right-wingers believe both, that if smart gun legislation passes, people will just find other means of killing one another, while at the same time, many of them believe that if you keep weed illegal, people won't simply find another means of getting high or even just buying the weed through non-legal methods. Just a thought. It actually goes beyond this. Dion brings up a really good point, but there's another example here. Abortion. We've been talking for years, Lewis, about how if you make abortion illegal, we don't have evidence that the number of abortions decreases to any significant extent. We know that the number of legal abortions will decrease. We know that people will go either to other states or sometimes will get involved in dangerous back alley type abortions. It's the exact same thing. It is a double standard. Somehow gun laws won't do anything, but keeping marijuana illegal definitely will.
Well, it is a double standard. There's a lot of hypocrisy here, but the difference is that most of these Americans who want to keep who want their guns, let's just say, think that it's a constitutional right, and there's nothing about weed in the Constitution.
What we do know for sure is also that the number of deaths that marijuana is responsible for compared to the number of deaths that firearms are responsible for should tell us a little bit more about which of these which side of the double standard we should be focusing on. Really good point from Dion. Excellent stuff. We are member supported, and there's a whole other show that we do just for our
support. Joey Rogan Experience.
How did you get involved? You started.
Dr. Carl Hart. He breaks down a lot of like drug stuff and
how did
that became
what led you to want to go down this road?
So I was in. I tell this story in the book, and so I was in the Air Force back in the 80s, like you mentioned about crack cocaine. So I was in the Air Force over in England, 86, 87, 88. And crack cocaine was a big deal in the United States, as you point out. And I grew up in the hood in Miami. And Miami was a cocaine capital in the United States. And so things that were happening in my community that were not good, high unemployment, crime, all of these kinds of things, I blamed crack cocaine for that. And so I thought that if I go to school and get a degree in order to study drugs, the effects of drugs on the brain, I could solve the problems that faced my community or the problems that I thought were in the community, particularly those related to drugs. And so I began studying drugs as an undergraduate and then went on to graduate school to study drugs on the brains of animals and to try to figure out the neurobiological mechanisms that were responsible for addiction.
So you just got fascinated by this idea of fixing this issue that you saw in your community, and then you just fell into a rabbit hole.
Yeah, so when I started along my journey, my path, I actually got an education. And, so as James Baldwin said, the paradox of education is precisely this. As one begins to become educated and conscious, one begins to question the society in which he's being educated. And that's what happened with me. And so along the way, I discovered things like, the majority of people who use these drugs are not addicted. That was one thing I discovered. I discovered that many of the things that we said about crack cocaine were just simply not true. Like the whole crack baby myth. And people said that that our generation should be prepared to have an army of kids who couldn't learn because of being exposed to crack cocaine. That just simply wasn't true. When all the data came out beginning in the mid-1990s, we realized that simply wasn't true. Other things that I learned that just simply wasn't true. Things like one hit of crack cocaine, you're addicted. Not true. That crack cocaine was different from powder cocaine. Not true. All of these things I discovered along the way that they weren't true. And not only that, I discovered that this wasn't new. I went back to the early 1900s and saw the same sort of hysteria, mainly race-based hysteria surrounding drugs, occurred even then. And so I thought, what's going on? And then that helped me to be more critical about my issue.
Is there a difference in the effect of crack cocaine, the physical effect, and cocaine and heroin?
So let's think about crack cocaine.
I mean, not heroin, rather
powder cocaine.
Powder cocaine.
Yeah, let's think about crack cocaine and powder cocaine. Let's just think about the chemical structure. The only difference between crack cocaine and powder cocaine is that the powder cocaine has this thing called the hydrochloride salt attached to it. That salt prevents it from being smoked. Now, you can dissolve the powder cocaine in water and then shoot it in your arm. And so you have the effects of cocaine, onset of the effects within seconds. The same is true with crack cocaine. The effects are, onset of effects are within seconds. Now, the biological activity of cocaine is at the base. Not that so that hydrochloride portion on the cocaine powder, on the powder cocaine, has no biological activity. Whereas, so that means that crack and powder are the same drug. They are exactly the same drug, the same effects, same drug.
Wow, so it's indistinguishable to the user.
Indistinguishable.
Now, why is it that they prepare it that way? Like, what's the benefit of preparing it? It's just so it delivers quicker?
Great question. So, one of the things that you might recall Richard Pryor back in the days when he burnt himself with smoking. So he was freebasing. So he was removing that hydrochloride portion of the salt off of the cocaine base so he could actually smoke it. Now, he was using ether, which is highly flammable. With crack cocaine, you no longer need the ether. You just mix it up with baking soda and water and the cocaine, and you mix it up and you get rid of that salt. So ether is no longer needed and it's not as dangerous. So that's one of the reasons that we have crack cocaine as a result of that. And it made it so you could sell them in unit doses to make the drug appear to be cheaper, because you also might recall in the early 1980s, 1970s, you had to buy cocaine powder in bulk, and that made it more expensive. Crack cocaine made it a lot more simple for people to buy it who didn't have the kind of expendable income that
open minds on empty ones. Here's a Mark Tice clip. I would say
so essentially they just brought it down to bite size.
Breaks down what happened to the grid and how rather than people getting up and talking about what would happen if the grid went down.
Like communication,
so it could happen to the grid, or they can use it as an angle to shut
virtually
shit down.
Everything that's necessary to maintain our modern society. This is actually one of the major reasons why the FEMA camps have been secretly being built over the last few years, and why local police departments have been getting military-grade vehicles, as well as many government institutions stocking up on massive ammo purchases, because the government has known for quite some time that we were entering into a severe solar cycle, and the possibility of an EMP coming from the sun, a CME, a coronal mass ejection that could knock out the power grid, setting us back to the Stone Age, would utterly destroy society. Having people hit the streets, massive destruction beyond what most people could even imagine. And while this has been the talk of, quote, conspiracy theorists for the longest time, it is finally making its way into the mainstream news. The congressional hearing convened on Thursday. This is a report from Time magazine. And we narrowly missed having this event, a Carrington event, named after an individual who identified a massive solar flare that knocked out what was the electrical grid and the communication system through the telegraph years ago. But here it is, Forbes magazine. A massive solar superstorm narrowly missed blasting Earth back into the Dark Ages. July 23rd, 2012, it says that, quote, we had no idea how close to a revolution-esque technology blackout we were. Revolution-esque, referring to the television show about the planet losing power. Scientists have recently been leaking into the mainstream that they said that this is a very real possibility because the sun is entering or is in a very active phase and will continue to be for approximately the next 9 to 12 months. And so at least this is getting into the mainstream. Many people are in the private sectors have warned that people are not ready for this. But of course, the reason this has been covered up is because the public would panic. Although they're getting so desensitized and they just really probably just couldn't care. As long as they got a big flat screen TV, an endless supply of booze and bong loads, then most people really just couldn't care. But this is particularly interesting in the wake of Los Angeles Airport, LAX, being shut down. All of the traffic control computers just had a problem, and it was revealed because a spy plane flew over. That's right, just a spy plane can launch over, just interfere with the traffic and just shutting down all the computers. So this is probably the time to get stocked up on some emergency supplies, at least a month's worth of food.
Trying to
get some protein
out of people, right?
Yeah, they want to get the reaction out of people. So
the obvious threat to untold numbers of citizens, and because of the crisis which is even now developing, this radio station will remain on the air day and night. This station and hundreds of other radio and TV stations throughout this part of the country are pooling their resources through an emergency network hookup to keep you informed of all developments.
The
ghosts of the darkness have come.
Big media lies, if you like to sing Twin James and Rhythm.
Yo, this is GoldenShow, and you're listening to the GoldenShow.
EarlyMorningMile.com. There we go.
The Golden Rail.
Gold has nothing to do with money. You have to do with knowledge. Stay golden. See you on the flip.
Stay golden. Yo, yo, yo.
What are you talking about? All that talking like this, like that, all day in your hood. Golden shows, golden roads, strobe lights, laser lights. Look at my gold, tripping tonight. Happen shit, one morning, hold it up, notice it. We're talking like this, talking like that. We're talking. Golden debate show, golden debate Show. Golden Debate Show. We like this. We're talking hood. Draw the line. MC that talk big shot. No coming after that. Golden Show.
Mother Earth. Right. Double meaning there. Peace. Golden.